hey, I'm going to fit, 3 passengers in this vehicle at the same time, so let me buy a really big one.
Everybody thought back in the day it was great to buy the biggest vehicle possible. And a lot of times they're sitting around because they're not filling them up. They're not fuel efficient. The drivers don't like driving them, right? It's like driving a big tank.
Welcome back to NEMT Experts. I've got with me a special and friendly guest, John Maselli, the National Director of Van Sales at Model 1. John, how you doing?
Great, Nirav. Happy to be here, man. Good to see you.
Yeah. No, thanks for being here.
Yeah.
John, can you just give us a brief background about yourself?
Yeah, John Maselli, been in this business for 10 years. I started in early 2014. I sold pretty much right from the beginning commercial wheelchair accessible vehicles. And I focused primarily on New York City taxi, livery, black car, which eventually kind of morphed into more of the TNCs like Uber and Lyft. But yeah, I was living in Brooklyn for a long time, and selling cabs that were upfitted for yellow taxi, for the green outer borough taxi program that didn't last that long, and then some of the black car programs that are out there. Another interesting thing is that I was trained by Easter Seals to basically train drivers for sensitivity and safety in these wheelchair vehicles. It was a requirement by the New York TLC, the Taxi and Limousine Commission, for new drivers to take this 3-hour training. So I did that twice a week for the first almost 2 years that I came on board, in addition to the sales side of things. And I trained a little bit over about 1,000 taxi and black car drivers during that time. It was really cool. Made it even more fun and interesting.
Wow. That's a rich history in this industry.
Yeah.
Can you tell us, John, about how you got into Model 1 and, what is Model 1?
Yeah. So Model 1 commercial vehicles, some people may know the company Creative Bus Sales, a 40-year-old organization. That's us. We changed our name a year ago, just about, with the addition of not just buses, right? Vans, minivans, full-size vans, cargo vans we're doing now. So, we are really, we want to be known as the go-to for any kind of commercial vehicle, primarily that are upfitted in some way. So, our ADA compliant minivans and full-size vans for NEMT are part of that new addition to the company, but it's the same company. I've been here for a couple of years and loving it, having a great time.
Yeah. And I'm excited to have you on board because, so many of my Bambi customers ask me like, hey, where do I get my vehicles? What kind of vehicles do I get? Obviously it's one of the most important things in NEMT is having the vehicles, right?
It is.
And you guys at Model 1, you take a different approach to helping NEMT business owners go through that buying process of figuring out which vehicle to buy, how to, even think about that decision. Can you just share about that?
Yeah, a lot of the buzzwords are, consultative approach, and we certainly are consultative. I think, we have a lot of years of expertise in terms of the people that work for us, especially those that are on my team. We're not going to just, we don't want to just, say, hey, this is what it's going to cost, or this is what the price is. We want to lead with kind of the pains that are out there and the challenges that NEMT companies can come across, whether they be beginning or existing, small or large or anything in between. We want to look at, kind of the opportunities and results that are important to the actual end user. And so our approach is to be, again, a little bit more level of expertise where we can push back a little bit in a respectful way and say, hey, listen, have you considered this? Or just because you're asking about this type of vehicle, have you considered doing something like this? I've tried to create almost like an ecosystem for these customers. They're your customers, they're my customers, right? And they're in the middle, and they should be in the middle. They should be front and center, if you will. And this ecosystem that we have not only has vehicles, but we can help point people in the right direction for routing software, right? And in the right direction for insurance, for finance. I mean, those are just as important as the vehicle, because if you can't pay for it, then you're not going to have it, right? If you can't insure it, you're not going to be able to get out on the road and be safe. Even things like additional equipment with, whether it be stretchers or wheelchairs, we have a kind of a core group of folks that we work with that we can kind of share with our prospects and customers and make sure they're off on the right foot.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Love it. John, can you tell me this? Like, you get a lot of probably new NEMT business owners coming, and they have to figure out for the first time, like, what kind of vehicle do I buy? Where do I buy it from? What do I think about? Like, what do you sort of, tell people are like some of the main criteria they should think about when they're thinking about what kind of vehicle to buy for the first time?
Yeah. It's interesting. Aside from the fact that it needs to be ADA compliant, right? I mean, it has to be a commercial van. Unfortunately, we see a lot of in the marketplace, especially the secondhand marketplace, there are a lot of wheelchair accessible vehicles out there that likely aren't compliant. Because there's obviously a whole industry out there for personal use wheelchair vehicles, which is great, obviously, but technically it's not going to work for our customers because it's not ADA compliant. Now, look, there's no ADA police out there. You're not going to get pulled over and have your vehicle inspected. But, if there happens to be a problem with that vehicle in operation and there's some sort of litigation, that could and will come out. So that's one thing we talk to our customers about is, hey, make sure that you're getting something that's ADA compliant. Me and my team, we don't feel like we're gonna, sell a vehicle to everybody we talk to. It's not realistic. But if we could just impart some knowledge on them as they start this journey, which is, a long and bumpy road, we feel like we're doing our jobs, and we know that a lot of customers out there are buying or have bought from other dealers out there, and that's great. Again, we're here just to be there for them and make sure that they know they can come to us and they'll get honest information. In terms of other things, we also like to talk to them about how they're going to get their business, right? Whether they're going to be signing up with a broker or going out and getting some sort of their own kind of contracts and agreements, right? We want to make them aware that you need these things to succeed. I mean, the vehicle is basically your business with four wheels, right? I mean, you need to be running that vehicle at all times to make money and to keep the lights on. So, we talk about those kinds of things as well.
Awesome. And John, I love your guys' relationship building approach to this, right? Like you're saying, even if you're not going to sell a vehicle to someone or whatever, like, you'll still help them out, build that relationship, because I mean, it all comes back.
It does. Yeah.
One thing I'm curious to know about, and I think a lot of viewers is, I mean, you've been doing this a long time, John. You've probably seen people make all sorts of mistakes when buying vehicles.
Yeah.
What are some of the common pitfalls that people make in going about buying maybe the first vehicle or not their first vehicle, whatever it is? Like, what consistent mistakes do you see people make that could be easily avoided?
Well, I think people can buy hastily, right? And they're not prepared. There are some larger companies out there that, will buy vehicles based on contracts that they win. And the smaller folks, maybe not as much, but, make sure you're buying, like I said before, you're buying a compliant vehicle. Also make sure that you're considering, and these are things that we would talk about, considering consider the future, right? Consider how that vehicle will not only just fit in your fleet today, but where and how it'll fit in a year, 2 years, maybe up to 5 years, depending on how long you keep it, right? Those are the some of the biggest things out there. You want versatility. I see some customers that go and right off the bat buy the biggest vehicle that they can get, and meanwhile they're not filling that up to capacity, and their ROI is less because of that. So again, every instance is a little bit different, but you got to be prepared for what's to come. And those are some of the things that we will talk about to make sure that you're aware. We don't like to be doom and gloom, but it's not going to be all, rainbows and unicorns right out the bat. Like, this is work, it is business, and you have to work at it and towards it to be successful. So we're here for that cup of coffee to wake you up and make sure you understand what's about to happen,
Yeah. And that's an interesting point about the future, because NEMT business owners, they start out with maybe 1 or 2 vehicles thinking, hey, I'm going to grow my fleet over time and grow my business. Do I buy a vehicle right now that can fit multiple wheelchairs in it at the same time?
Yeah.
Or do I buy a vehicle that just, can do maybe an ambulatory or whatever I need right now, buy future vehicles, when the need comes? Do I prepare for the future now? Do I only prepare for right now? I don't know. Any sort of further thoughts on that?
Yeah. Ideally, I think to have the success that most everyone wants to achieve, you will have to have more than 1 van. You also have to consider who you're going to hire to drive for you, right? So, drivers, driver retention, those are things that we also talk about. I think at the end of the day, you have to be sure that you can diversify in one way or another, right? In some areas, standard wheelchair rides don't pay as much, right? So how can you maybe use the same vehicle to find trips that are a little bit, that make you a little bit more money? So we talk about those kinds of things too. I mean, I think we would usually recommend maybe a smaller vehicle to start, because the cost is less too. Obviously, when you go in, it's a smaller vehicle, so the initial outlay of money is not as much. But consider that if you want to do maybe multiple wheelchairs, you can't do a minivan. You have to go to something more full size. So you kind of got to be prepared for that. And not everybody realizes the capacity just when they see a van. So those are some of the things that we'll talk about as well, and make sure that they're comfortable with what they're getting.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for sharing. One thing I like to do in these interviews, and especially with you, because you've got such a rich background in this space and have seen tons of stuff, is story time. You've probably got tons of fun stories, John, about, experiences with customers, buying experiences that went really well, that didn't go well, that could have gone bad, but then, turned around. I'd love for you to just share us some stories that could be interesting for our viewers, who are a lot of whom are, relatively new NEMT business owners.
Yeah, it's surprising. There's been plenty of customers that came in and wanted to buy, especially pre-COVID, $10,000-$20,000 used wheelchair van. And I think it's a bit cliche to say, but a lot of times, you do get what you pay for, and cheap can be expensive, right? I mean, you're going to be spending less now, but what's the cost of that vehicle to your business every day that it's not working? And we have those conversations, once again, talking about that kind of those pain points. I remember dealing with plenty of customers that started off small, and they wanted to buy multiple vans at once. Maybe they couldn't do it yet, or they just didn't have enough cash, or enough drivers. And it's like, hey, you can grow, right? Get out there, get the feel for it, get experienced, sign up with some sort of a routing software to help you optimize that, so that you as the owner don't have to, constantly be entrenched in that side of the business, right? And look to growth. And I've seen plenty of customers that started small that now have 10, 15 van fleets, and they're doing really, really well. And that's exciting. That's exciting to me because, like, again, our goal is to help our customers win, right? And if they're winning, we're winning in a lot of ways, and it all comes back, and it's that whole circle and that ecosystem that I always go back to. That's important to us. Conversely, I've seen customers not necessarily heed our advice, and they start off really big, and they have these somewhat delusions of grandeur, and it's like, hold on a second, like, we want you to succeed, but don't start so big right away unless you know that you're going to be able to get that van filled up, constantly running to be able to afford the payment and to have it be successful for you. So I've seen some customers, and as a company we've seen some customers say, I regret buying such a big one. The next one will be something smaller, and now we'll have two different size vehicles that'll fit better into that diversity that we're looking for.
Yeah. I mean, obviously there's no one size fits all sort of buying advice for anyone, but is a pretty common theme that you're seeing people just bite off more they can chew. Like, hey, I'm going to fit, 3 passengers in this vehicle at the same time, so let me buy a really big one. And that tends to consistently happen. People just think they're going to be transporting a lot more passengers in the same vehicle, so they buy bigger ones, whereas really they should just buy smaller ones, and as they actually get more passengers, just buy more and more vehicles.
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing that in many different markets in this type of industry. Is everybody thought back in the day it was great to buy the biggest vehicle possible, and a lot of times they're sitting around because they're not filling them up, they're not fuel efficient. The drivers don't like driving them, right? It's like driving a big tank, and so there's the whole micro transit side of things that's happening in a lot of cities. And I think, in a lot of ways, operators on the non-government, municipal side are duplicating that and going more with a vehicle that'll take one person and have a bit of a more kind of direct use. And it seems to be a lot more efficient and effective that way. That's not the case every time. Obviously, it's not one size fits all, like you said, but a lot of times, customers are downsizing, and they're loving that, and it's making a lot more sense for them. And their ROI just goes through the roof when they do that.
Yeah. John, walk me through this. I'm a new NEMT business owner. I say, okay, you know what? I'm setting up my business. I need to get my first vehicle. What are sort of if you can just give me a rough sense of the timeline and the steps from saying, hey, I need to buy a vehicle, to I have a vehicle that's ready to start running. What sort of time frame and hoops I'm not necessarily hoops I'm jumping through, but what steps am I going through in that full process?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's a little bit different. Some people do a lot of homework, some people do very little, and then some people are kind of in the middle of that. I think it's important, obviously, to at least get incorporated first, right? Get the business set up, have a name, have all of that taken care of, and then we can really start talking about your vehicles. I still think, if you decide you're going to go work with some sort of broker, get out there, talk to them, verify the requirements that you need, and ideally you have that information, and then really you have to buy the vehicle. But it's funny because you can't usually get that contract until you have a vehicle, right? So it's kind of like the chicken and the egg. So again, and every state and kind of every region can be a little bit different. I think, somebody comes to us and says, hey, I'm basically ready. We can get a vehicle delivered probably within 30 days, maybe sooner, depending on what they're looking for and where it's going. But that's one good thing that for us is we have a lot of vehicles on ground ready to go at any given time that would work, in virtually any instance that somebody needs for NEMT. So I would say it can be quick. Financing and insurance, again, other parts that are vital to the process. So you have to make sure that you're ready to take that on if you haven't already started that process. But
Yeah.
yeah, we try to be quick, but also thorough.
Yeah. No, and I want to emphasize again, one thing I appreciate about you guys, John, like the Model 1 team is, NEMT business owners come to you and it's not like you're pushing this or that on them. Like, you understand it's complicated, it's difficult for them to figure out. And like, you're going to give them the advice that they need, which is not necessarily Model 1, pushing cars on them and selling more product, but, you do right by them. And, that comes back around. And I know some of your customers, and so I can verify that that's the kind of a relationship building that you do with them.
Yeah, I mean, that's important, right? You make one customer happy, they tell a few people. You make a few customers upset, they tell a lot of people. You know what I mean? So we're mindful of that, and we take into account a lot of those things, and it's something that we love doing.
John, can you tell us where across the country Model 1 has a presence? NEMT businesses are everywhere. Are you able to service, any area?
Yeah, excited to say that we are a nationwide company. We have 25-ish locations around the country in most major markets. But my team in particular, as well as the sales team in general for Model 1, we're able to sell vehicles really anywhere. We even have some customers in Puerto Rico and the Bahamas. So that's a trip that I like to go on to do a delivery, right? But yeah, so we're nationwide, so we can help you no matter where you do your business.
Awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
I am going to be putting Model 1's contact info in the description of this video. John, any sort of final thoughts and takeaways that you want to leave our viewers with?
Yeah, model1.com is our website. We are strictly commercial vehicles. Feel free to reach out. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active in LinkedIn. I can be reached directly, and then gladly I'll get you to more of a regional person based on where you're doing your business from. We're also big believers in the organizations out there. NEMTAC, TTA. Obviously, I think I met you initially at NEMTAC. Nirav, and so I would say look into those as well, and let's make it fun. Let's be prepared. Understand, it's not always that easy, but we're here to help. So yeah, it's awesome. Love to talk to anybody out there about their business.
Awesome. Thanks so much, John.
Run, Bambi, run. How was that?
Awesome. Thanks, John.